Senator Susan Collins is speaking now. We're going to take that.
Senator, do you need to see a public hearing featuring Ford before you can vote on Kavanaugh?
I have said that I believe in order for me to assess the credibility of these allegations, that I want to have both individuals come before the Senate Judiciary Committee and testify under oath.
If this continues to be a he said, she said, is the allegation disqualifying? How do you adjudicate something that's almost 40 years old?
Well, that does make it very difficult, and that's why it's important that there be a very thorough interview and that we see both individuals respond to the allegations. There are an awful lot of questions, inconsistencies, gaps, and that's why, to be fair to both, we need to know what happened. It's my understanding that the staff is doing interviews or has proposed to do interviews, and then that, I assume, would be the prelude to some sort of hearing.
Senator Collins,
do you believe Dr. Ford?
I don't know enough about Dr. Ford and her allegations yet to reach that kind of judgment. That's why having the opportunity to observe her being questioned, read a transcript or and a deposition, and make that kind of assessment is so important. Obviously, if Judge Kavanaugh has lied about what happened, that would be disqualifying.
Senator Collins, you spoke to him on the phone the other day. What did you say? What did you say in that part of the conversation?
I'm sorry. I'm going to answer this one last question. Last week, the Judiciary Committee staff informed me of this letter. I read the letter. At that point, we had no idea who had sent it. And I noticed the date of the letter and wondered why the information had not been released long ago. I asked Judge Kavanaugh when I had my final hour-long telephone call with him on Friday about the letter and the allegations that it contained. He emphatically denied that the allegations were true. He said that he had never acted that way, not only with this unnamed accuser, but with any woman. He was absolutely emphatic about that.
And if this is just a he said, she said, if this turns into just a he said, she said, how do you make this decision?
Well, that's why it's so important that we have testimony under oath with a lot of questions asked of both of them.
And it doesn't need to be in public or just under oath?
Should the FBI play a role?
Thank you.
An extraordinary moment on Capitol Hill from a woman who may hold the fate of the Kavanaugh nomination in her hands. Joining us at the table, Alyssa Mastromonaco, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff for President Obama, now Senior Advisor and spokesperson for the National Abortion and Reproductive Rights Action League, and Jonathan Capehart, Washington Post opinion writer and host of WYNC's America on the Line. Casey Hunt joins us right now. She was participating in that questioning. Casey?
Hi, Nicole. As you heard, and I think it was probably a little bit chaotic there for all of our viewers at the end, but I just want to underscore that this was a very strong statement from Senator Collins, and it in many ways contradicts what we're hearing privately about how Republicans want to handle this. And I think it helps explain what you heard from the president earlier today, where he had clearly received the message from the Senate Republicans that they need to follow a process that is not going to, quite frankly, make the woman that we just spoke to angry or make her feel as though her concerns have been disregarded. And you could hear in her voice how she feels as though she is in a difficult position, because she was saying that she doesn't feel as though she has enough information to know if she trusts the account from Dr. Ford. On the other hand, she does have an unequivocal denial from Brett Kavanaugh, but she doesn't have it under oath. And as you heard at the very end, if this does turn into to simply a he said, she said, she's going to be in the very difficult position of having to decide who she believes. So this is a woman who, as you know, Nicole, has very much prides herself on being independent. She thought about going home to run for governor of Maine because it's not always fun to be a Republican senator in Trump's Washington, quite frankly. But she decided to stay because she knew that she could play a critical role in issues like health care, have a very important voice at critical moments like this. And quite frankly, this is probably more difficult than she ever could have imagined that it might be. And really, everyone in the Capitol, from Mitch McConnell to Chuck Schumer to those red state Democrats to Lisa Murkowski, they're all waiting for a smoke signal from the woman that we just spoke to. Nicole.
Casey Hunt, I heard in Susan Collins the impact of Brett Kavanaugh's hour-long phone conversation with her on Friday. She obviously is balancing that against the impact and the dramatic and disturbing nature of the allegations as described in the Washington Post. And at this point, it seems that Judge Kavanaugh...
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.